You're tuned in to the Daily BS.
Do you believe it?
Sports and culture combined into one.
Michael on the drive across the lane. Turnaround shot. Got it. 63 for Jordan.
Are you kidding me? He did what?
The Daily BS begins
Bazinga!
right now.
Right, googly moogly.
Hadouken!
Hey, this promises to be fun.
Can't wait.
Oh yeah, to business. Cole Johnson, take it away, please.
We are on the brink of the stretch run and stretch drive for the NBA season. Now, this time last year, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was this date last year, the Lakers played the Rockets at home and they beat the Rockets. And LeBron said that he was activating playoff mode. Well, 28 days later, they deactivated Mr. James when the Lakers failed to qualify for the playoffs. This year's a different story because his team, Los Angeles Lakers, they are the number one seed and they look pretty good. They look poised to be the number one seed in the West. And things are looking up. As it was evidenced this week. But of course we know that we have to always talk about this guy because when there's another day, there's another LeBron James conversation being brought up. So right now, let's get to it. Bronsexuals, this is your time to shine. Leg out.
In a world where partial greatness is celebrated and total greatness is shunned, there stands to be a figure on the lips of those who love him and those who hate him. The inane comparisons to Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant continue and has existed since 2003. There is no end in sight, for the battle between those who unconditionally love and unconditionally hate him wages on. These are their stories. Welcome to the Bronsexual Confessions.
So Sunday, just so you know, Bronsexuals, I give you the positive too. So they played a game against the Celtics. And of course, this is the rivalry of all of the NBA. Even though it's okay, it's not really all that stellar now. Not like it was in the 80s or even the turn of last decade, but I digress. So LeBron, dribbled to the right. He was guarded one-on-one. He made a fadeaway move, hit the shot with about 30 seconds left to play. And that decided things as the Lakers split the season series with the Celtics with the win Sunday, 114-112. Now, LeBron had 29 points in that game, 9 assists and 8 rebounds. But with the good comes the, why do we have to talk about this? So Monday, as you all know, there was a ceremony. Not necessarily funeral, but really a public memorial service held for Gianna and Kobe Bryant at Staples Center. Conspicuous in possibly his absence was LeBron James, and people were asking the question, did LeBron James attend the Kobe Bryant public service? Who cares? And it just upset me to hear that because it was like, okay, someone's trying to squeeze the turnip hard to come up with some news. Why? It was not news at all. And when I think of it, it's infuriating. However, that is not what I want to really talk about in this Bronzexual Confessions time period. So I had a conversation with a Bronzexual, and this Bronzexual was loud and proud. I mean, just very proud. But unlike most Bronzexuals, this guy was more respectful. And so he asked this question. He said, quote, "For those who are not convinced that LeBron is the GOAT, GOAT meaning greatest of all time, is there anything he can do to change your mind? Like win one more championship, win 4 more championships, break Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's record." Close quote. Now I figured that's a simple question. That's a simple ask. I have to admit that. But with that simple question, I had a simpler answer, which is, quote, "There isn't anything LeBron can do to change my mind as to him being the GOAT. The ship forever sailed on June 11th, 2011. Close quote. Now, I got pushback on that. Someone said to me, "So you mean the time when LeBron, for the first time in his career, played with a real star and they had chemistry issues?" And I laugh at that. Because if you're a team that's supposed to win, as he said in June of 2010, when he signed on the dotted line and he showed up in Miami with Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade in their Heat uniforms, and he has a mic in his hand and he says, "Not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6, not 7 championships." He came to win chips. He didn't come to just simply go through the motions and say, "Well, I think we don't have the chemistry down. Maybe we can make this year a mulligan." No. His thought process when he signed to be on the Heat, June 2010, well, by this time next year, we're going to be hoisting up the Larry O'Brien trophy. So when I heard the chemistry talk, I said, okay, chemistry issues, that's in November and December, not June. Because June, that would have been an issue already handled. No. And meanwhile, the reason why I said June 11th, 2011, and not June 13th, 2007, was because in June 13, 2007, that was the date of Game 4 of the 2007 NBA Finals between the Spurs and the Cavaliers. And the Spurs swept the Cavaliers. No, LeBron was punching up. He was punching me on his weight class, as they say. Because remember, that was the same year where in the Eastern Conference Finals, it basically was him and a whole bunch of other people. And remember, he had Antoine Jameson and Daniel Gibson, or Booby, along with Erison Varejao as teammates. And that was the series where he scored 25 straight points and 20, some to the effect of 28 out of the last, 29 out of the last 30. In a win against probably one of the most stout defensive teams that we have seen in quite some time in the Detroit Pistons. So they get past them in 6, and that was all they had. They shot as much as they could. They shot their best shot because when they got to the Spurs in 2007's NBA Finals, they met up with a team that just was too strong, too big, too fast, too skilled, and too loaded up with championship pedigree. That was just the case. So I give the 2007 season a pass. I don't really consider that anything that would hurt his GOAT status. Never did. 2011 happened. So we get to the time where he's a Heat and he ran into some adversity, not much, but some adversity in the Eastern Conference Finals against the Bulls, where the Heat got whooped in game 1 and then they stormed in games 2, 3, 4, and 5 and just gentlemen swept them completely out the playoffs. So it made you think, okay, well, I guess here it is. The coronation is about to happen. And then the first 2 games, they split it between themselves and the Mavs. And then we get to game 3. And we start to see something that was troubling. And then we saw it again in game 4. And then we saw it again in game 5. And then we saw it again in game 6. And what was the something troubling that I'm talking about? The fourth quarter in games 3, 4, 5, and 6. The money quarter. The quarter where you earn your stripes. The quarter that separates the men from the boys. The quarter that separates the elite from the, okay, you all right, superstar. And that has been said by many analysts, journalists, players, and executives. And LeBron at this time, 26 years of age, this was his 8th year in the league, so this was no excuse at all to come up and play smaller than mini-me. Yet he did. Because in each of those fourth quarters, that man scored a total of 8 points. I'll say it again. Game 3's fourth quarter, 2 points. Game 4's fourth quarter, 2 points. Game 5's fourth quarter, 2 points. Game 6's fourth quarter, 2 points. Now, you can say in game 5, I think he had a triple-double. That doesn't matter. Because when he was supposed to come up big, he came up small. So the Heat lost that series 4-2 to the Mavs. And look, in that series, Dirk Nowitzki outclassed everybody in it. So I'm not even comparing LeBron to Dirk in that series, because Dirk played out of his mind in that playoff stretch. No, LeBron played so bad. He averaged 17.8 points in that series. LeBron in that series played so bad that the 6th man for the Mavericks, Jason Terry, outplayed him. He averaged 18 points. Shot better from the field, had a better shooting percentage, played less minutes, and he outplayed LeBron. So if you ask me why I don't ever consider, why I will never consider, and why I will not change considering LeBron James to be the greatest of all time, look at games 3, 4, 5, and 6 of the 2011 NBA Finals. And there is where LeBron James's candidacy to be the greatest player of all time in the NBA died. And it is forever buried. You can whimper, you can cry, you can say foul, you can say I'm being harsh, you can say I'm being unfair, you can even call me an F. Bronner. I don't care what you say. Those stats in those 4 games, especially those key 48 minutes that I just laid out for you, is the reason why I will never consider LeBron James to be the greatest greatest basketball player who's ever played in the National Basketball Association. Because there was one moment, or I should say 4 in this case, where he came up so small. The greatest player in the world was outplayed by a 6th man. That should never happen. So, I'll say a phrase that Killmonger said in Black Panther, and this is directly aimed right at you, Bronzexual. Is this your king? Is this your king?
In a world where contradiction and hypocrisy exist, lies the truth to set us all free. Here is where we all get enlightened. This has been yet another installment of The Bronzexual Confessions.
Wonderful, wonderful job, my friend. Wonderful job. And I'm going to add a little something to that that's going to really get on some people's nerves, and frankly, I don't care. And I got a LeBron take of my own that will follow this one. You heard Cole Johnson say that LeBron got outperformed by a 6th man, which permanently, in my eyes, also eliminates LeBron from being the greatest of all time. Well, that's not the first time that's happened. It also happened a second time. Now, granted, the second time that it happened, said 6th man started the last 3 games of the World Championship Series. But said 6th man also wound up being most valuable player. You know who that 6th man was? That 6th man was Andre Iguodala, who was named Finals MVP in the 2015 World Championship Series. You're supposed to be the best of the best of the best, LeBron James. And you got outperformed by Jason Terry, who was the 6th man in 2011. And 4 years later, you got outperformed and shut down to an extent by Andre Iguodala in 2015. And oh, by the way, both of those series were for the World Championship. And I'll add this, and I got another take coming. I'm going to expand on this. By the way, Bronzexuals, haven't you forgotten that LeBron has jumped ship 3 separate times to win championships? While a certain Bronzexual who says LeBron is greater than Kobe is greater than MJ, and that is a false statement. If you know your math, you know that to be a false statement. Kobe earned all 5 of his titles with the Lakers. Michael Jordan earned all 6 of his titles with the Bulls. And to Mr. Ryan Hollins, who brought up the impact that LeBron had with different teammates, yeah, Kobe has had different teammates, and so has Michael. Here's the difference. Kobe and Michael didn't have to chase the teammates. They came to them. The teammates that were impacted by Kobe and MJ didn't have to chase they didn't have to chase the teammates. The teammates came to them, and quite willingly, which is why I feel the Lakers will not get out of the second round of the playoffs this year, and Anthony Davis is going to go home. A little hint for the rumor mill. I have some backup on this. You'll hear a lot more of my snowman's take to piggyback on this after this. Back in a flash. Cole Johnson and Errol Martin providing some great insights on why the Astros season scandal is good and why it's bad. Thank you to both gentlemen for hopping on. But I want to touch a subject as we head for the NBA. Got some more great stuff coming. Keeler's K's will be on a little later. And, I got so much stuff. I'm trying to look at the list of subjects that I have that my wife / executive producer made me write out to keep up with everything, and I still can't keep up with everything. But just pay attention to the show, folks. Good stuff continuing to come your way. And as I mentioned, Cole Johnson will be on a little later. Now, Cole and I are going to talk about why the NBA is in a bad state and how they whiffed at the All-Star weekend. I want to talk about a post that I saw over the course of the weekend that frankly got on my nerve. Now, I'm going to lay two disclaimers out there. One, I'm doing this mostly for fun, so I can get on some people's nerves and make them laugh at the same time. And two, these are my opinions. Therefore, it makes them the right ones. No, I'm just kidding. But let me get into this. I saw a post that said, a poll that said and asked, to be more precise, who do you think is going to be the most valuable player in the NBA this year? Is it going to be Giannis or is it going to be LeBron? I looked at that post again several times. Giannis or LeBron? I said, wait a minute. Wait. Let me take a look at that again. Giannis or LeBron? I kept hitting refresh, hoping that LeBron would escape and somebody else would be in his place. But I kept seeing LeBron, and then all of a sudden, my day came to a halt. What? LeBron in conversation for most valuable player?
Ain't nobody got time for that.
And on top of that, I add this.
That is blasphemous. That is blasphemous. How dare you? How dare you say such a thing?
And I'm going to have that said to me because of what I'm about to say right now. LeBron does no longer deserves to be in any kind of MVP conversation. Allow me to explain. You know who's carrying the Los Angeles Lakers right now? It ain't LeBron, it's Anthony Davis. And unfortunately, the Lakers ain't going to go far in the playoffs because of a lack of a point guard. Hey, LeBron, why don't you put your general manager notes together and figure out, hey, I need a point guard. I need some shooting. I need some shooters around me. Haven't figured that out yet, have you? Nope. Are you going to figure it out? He might. But then a part of me loves to ask,
Are you kidding me?
and then a part of me thinks, I can't just say LeBron doesn't deserve to be in MVP conversation because of what he's doing at age 35 is absolutely incredible. I'll give you that. Riddle me this, however. Is he? No, I better not ask that question. Anthony Davis is carrying the Lakers right now, not LeBron. LeBron's only getting the shine because he's LeBron, and that's wrong in and of itself. I know I'm going to get a lot of reasons and a lot of pushback for saying this, but I'm going to go ahead and say it, and it needs to be said. Why are y'all hyping a player for most valuable player who's not even carrying his team? Riddle me that. Why are you hyping a player for most valuable player just because he is who he is? Okay? I understand he's played 17 seasons. I understand he's had a lot of impact on a lot of players. I get that. I totally understand that. He has had an impact, good or bad. He has had an impact on a lot of players, okay? But why can't LeBron James make a free throw when it counts? Why does LeBron James get away with traveling? As evidence in a little video I saw against Utah. And I know these are very petty things, but you know what? I know what I was spoiled with when it came to the NBA. And sorry, LeBron ain't it. Kawhi maybe. Giannis Antetokounmpo maybe. Unfortunately, the players that should be voted for MVP won't have a chance to compete for him because they are, I don't know, they're kind of injured right now. That would be Kevin Durant, that would be Klay Thompson, and that would be Stephen Curry. I know LeBron is playing right now. And he is, listen to me carefully, he is playing his best basketball in 17 years. This is coming from a very staunch non-LeBron fan. Is he a fantastic athlete? Yes, he is. But I will hold true to the statement that I have said for the 17 years that he has been active. He's a fabulous athlete. He is at the top of his peak performance as an athlete. He's just not there as a basketball player. I'm sorry. I don't want to hear about what he's doing scoring-wise. I don't want to hear about his rebounds. I don't want to hear about how he has changed the culture of the Lakers. No, he hasn't. You know who did? You know who has changed the culture of the Lakers? Anthony Davis. His arrival gave LeBron a little bit of breathing room. But LeBron doesn't know how to use it. So he's trying to muscle in on Anthony Davis's shine when it should be all about Anthony Davis being in contention for most valuable player. And even that is a little shaky at best because this Laker team is one injury away, a very significant injury, be it to LeBron, be it to AD, or one of their supporting cast, if you want to call them a supporting cast. One injury away from being also-rans. How do you like those apples? One significant injury away from being near the middle part of the conference fighting for an 8 seed instead of a 1 seed. In the game against Denver, before we went to the All-Star break, LeBron didn't help them win that game. Anthony Davis did. You know, it's like Cole Johnson and I described and talked about off the air. He has a chance to win the game. Why is your shot selection so poor at year 17? You're supposed to get that out of your system by year 3 or 4. You're supposed to be the king, and he's not. I'm sorry. I have never bought into LeBron James being the end-all, be-all when it comes to basketball. I never have, and I never will. I will never say he's not a fantastic athlete. Let me repeat myself. I will never in life say he's not a fantastic athlete. LeBron has not changed the game in his tenure in the NBA. In some ways, Anthony Davis has. In some ways, Kawhi Leonard has. In many ways, Stephen Curry has. LeBron has not changed the game. He has not changed the culture of the NBA. He's a fantastic philanthropist off the court. I'll give you that. I'll give you that. But answer me this question, will you please? What in God's name has he done in 17 years that made you keep your attention on him? A certain 4-letter network found a way to keep the attention on him, and that's just to keep giving him attention. That's to keep talking about him. I haven't talked about him on this program in a while, except when Cole Johnson shows up and a few of my other guests shows up, and we just have fun with it. But I gotta tell you, I am not impressed with LeBron James in year 17, just as I was not impressed with LeBron James in year 1. To a certain Bron-sexual who said LeBron is greater than Kobe, and who's greater than MJ, stop it. Just plain stop it. Why? Because he has more points than MJ? Okay, LeBron's played 17 years, MJ played 15. Because he has more free throws than MJ? Okay, once again, LeBron's played 17 years, MJ played 15. But let me bring it back to this point. You will not convince me of LeBron James's supposed greatness until LeBron does something MJ did twice. How about 3 consecutive titles? How about the fact that LeBron relaxes on defense, and he's always relaxed on defense from year 1 to year 17? How about the fact that LeBron does not motivate his team? Well, I can't say he motivates his team all the time. He does when he wants to motivate himself. But here is what turned me off about LBJ, and what will continue to turn me off about LBJ. I instead of we. When he won his first title, you heard him talking about a kid from Akron, Ohio, who went on to do this, this, and this. I remember one statement about the legendary Michael Jordan, where he said, and I quote, we are entitled to defend what we have until we lose it. Let me repeat that, especially for a few Bron-sexual fans I know, because now I'm getting heated. We are entitled to defend what we have until we lose it. And let me speak to a certain Bron-sexual fan that's in Florida who loves telling me, MJ didn't win anything without Scottie. You would be correct, because you want to put the right teammates around your star player, which is what the Chicago Bulls did, which is what the Los Angeles Lakers did, which is what the Boston Celtics did, which is what the San Antonio Spurs did, which is what the Golden State Warriors did, which is what the Miami Heat did not. Oops. To all these Bron-sexual fans who love celebrating partial greatness, just remember, all the other athletes that I've talked about on this show during its 6.5-year run kept one thing in common. They said we instead of I. Now, take that. That's Snowman's take. What's yours? I got more stuff for you in a flash. I have been wanting to get this gentleman on the hotline for a long time, since he and I have been friends, because he shares the same thoughts that I do when it comes to the National Basketball Association. So y'all are going to have to forgive me and my buddy in advance if this turns into a rant session. This gentleman is the host of the Barbershop Sports Report, and he is James Smith, and he joins me right now. How are you, my friend?
What's going on, man? Glad to be on.
Finally, I get you on here.
Yeah, it's all good. Yeah, life is hectic, man.
It is.
Went through some life changes this last year, and I'm still kind of, trying to recover from it. But, I'm alive, man. I can't complain, so.
Hey, no complaints.
What it is.
All right, let's get into this. You and I have been talking a while, and we get a lot of pushback on some of the same things that we post about when it comes to the NBA. Here's a prime example. Do these millennial fans actually know what a travel is?
Of course not. But, you know, before we go any further, of course not. Come on now. What's already understood need not even be asked. Hey, but before we go any further, I do want to just point out just a slight correction. It's the Shop Report.
The Shop Report.
Is what the name. Yes, the Shop Report. And my sports moniker is Barbershop J.
Okay.
Just a little side note. Last year, Facebook and I got into whatever that we got into, some sort of thing. I had another account. They locked me out of the account and told me I couldn't use my sports moniker anymore. Why, I don't know. So they forced me to use my Social Security name, I guess. But yeah, Barbershop J is my sports moniker.
Okay, so I slipped on that. I apologize for that. But no,
man, you good, man. It's all part of the industry, man, or the business, if you would. But
do people actually know what a travel is? And I point out two offenders, frequent offenders, James Harden and LeBron James.
Of course. Man, listen. I mean, here's the sad part is, and I tell people this all the time, man. You know, we can differ. We can have a difference of opinion.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And this might be a bad analogy, but I'm gonna throw it out here. You know, when it comes to ice cream, okay, you might like Rocky Road, and I might like butterscotch, whatever it is.
Right.
That's different, okay? But the bottom line is it's still ice cream.
It is.
You understand what I'm saying? You can't argue the fact that it's ice cream.
Exactly.
So people try to act like what we seeing the same thing, but you can say, yeah, man, you know, it's a travel, but they ain't calling it now. Okay, that's true. But to say, oh, they ain't a travel, and the dude then took 45 steps. And then in the case of LeBron in particular, I can't even remember who they was playing, man, but it was a game, and they done posted it on Facebook 1,000 times. The video, he was standing at the top of the key for 35 minutes. Then he gonna walk from the top of the key to the free throw line and then start dribbling.
I think that was against
and
Utah.
People making excuses.
I want to say that was against Utah because I got that notification the next morning, and I pulled it up and I looked at it, and my mouth went through the floor. And my wife turned over and looked at me, and she says, "What did you see now?" Because she just saw this look on my face. And she feels the same way I do. The NBA has not been the same since the old school era went bye-bye, when people actually knew the frickin' rules, when people actually played the game for the love of the game.
Yeah.
I showed her that exact clip, and she looked at me and she goes, "I know I don't watch basketball as much as you, but that doesn't look right at all."
Isn't that something? Yeah. I mean, but at the end of the day, what's sad?
He walked across the timeline, stopped his dribble, took 3 extra steps, and then dribbled again, and no whistle, none.
Yeah. Well, you know, the refs, their hands are tied somewhat too, though, because they've been getting a lot of flack. You know, the NBA in general, they're doing too much. You know, this 2-minute report. You know, in an effort, you're trying to manufacture transparency,
right?
And that's what make you all the more suspect, if you ask me. You know, everybody wants, and then the fans, what they fail to realize is they are victims to the pageantry.
Yes.
You know, and not the point. The NBA ratings are down. I don't care what nobody say. You know what I'm saying?
But that seems to come and go
in an instant.
I've been saying that all year. You and I have talked. I've been saying all year that the NBA ratings are going to be through the floor, and people think I'm crazy. Yeah. People still think I'm crazy. Like, oh, wait till the playoffs start. So what?
Oh my goodness.
They're still going to go. They're still going to be through the floor.
Well, you know, I mean, I'm not saying you or I are either. But, you know, the folks thought Jesus was crazy. So, I mean, it's far for the course. Yep. You know what I'm trying to tell you?
Yeah, it's
you know
true.
What I mean? But the problem, I think, in large part, is the fans in particular, again, because you and I on Facebook, like you said, you know, once before I used to kind of respond to just about any and everything. But you had to stop doing that. I really started reading the comments. Some things are silence that speaks the loudest. Don't even just say nothing on everything, because you see, it's pointless talking to people whose opinions are subjective, but they act like they fact. You get what I mean?
Right.
If you look at the NBA now, in my estimation, yes, it's dunks and all. You still got all of your, the highlight elements that you had from back in the day. But in terms of the nuances of the game, the fabric of the game is sorely lacking.
It is.
Everybody want to put up these points, who's a better player, as if though how many points per game a guy average is the sole barometer or determination for how good or bad a guy is. No.
Yeah.
I say stop comparing LeBron to Jordan and who lost in the finals or who lost in the first round or whatever the case may be. I'm going to speak on that here in a second. But focus on how many bad possessions do you see in the today BA is what I like to call it versus the old school NBA.
Yep.
You understand
absolutely.
what I'm saying? How many shot selections you see are terrible based on situations? Because, see, that's what made the old school game different. And then, again, these fans who want to talk about LeBron apologists is what I call them. And this whole thing going back and forth with Mike and all of this kind of stuff is really pointless.
You've seen me in the middle of those arguments. I bring out the facts, and people still think I'm nuts.
Of course, man. Come on now.
And I'm going, look, I lived through the Jordan era. I know what you guys are trying to compare, and there is no comparison. Trust me.
There's none whatsoever.
I've seen it.
Unless you saw it.
Unless you watched the era, the golden era, as I like to refer it to, unless you watched any part of the golden era from 1979 to 1998, you haven't seen anything. Period.
Yeah.
You haven't seen anything.
Yeah. No question about it. That's why I don't even really go back and forth with people anymore, because willful ignorance is an affliction for which there is no cure.
Man, that's
But I will say this, though, about the NBA. My eyebrows have been raised a bit with Zion, Ja Morant, and some of this new crop of folks that's coming through here, because in the case of Zion in particular, I was not sold on him completely because, I never really got a chance to watch him play except for my oldest son is really, he's into the newer hoop. He knows all the shoes and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And with my work schedule, he would keep me filled in on who was doing what, high school ballers and mixtapes and so on and so forth.
Yes.
So he kept talking about this guy Zion. And I was like, man, all right. So the first time I got a chance to actually watch him was against Eastern Michigan when Duke was playing Eastern Michigan.
Yeah.
And they dominated Eastern Michigan. I said, oh, okay. Then the second time, I got to see them play against Duke against Gonzaga. And I see Hachimura, and I tell my son, if Zion is what you think he is, then we'll see tonight, because Hachimura was nothing to play with back in Gonzaga anyway.
Exactly.
And he dominated, Hachimura did. So I said, look, man, I don't know about that. But for whatever reason, his game so far, I'm totally, I didn't see that at Duke. I really didn't see that at Duke. And he has a fundamental game to him, as well as Ja Morant.
Yes.
The NBA sorely needed these guys, man, because it's all three ball and nothing else.
What have I said often? You and I have talked often. What have I always said? What is the one word I keep bringing back to, hopefully, to this lexicon? Fundamentals. I don't see any. You know why Golden State gets hated on so much? Because the fundamentals they exhibit are within the parameters of their offense. You know why Golden State gets much hatred? Because Klay Thompson and Steph Curry have taken an anomaly, which is the three-point shot, and they've turned it into a weapon. I've said it for 5 years. And people still seem to think, Golden State's down this year, but when you're down your two best players and you lose a third to free agency and you got all the injuries that you've had to deal with, I've actually heard people say, you ready for this one, that Steve Kerr is a fraud as a head coach.
Yeah, I've heard that too, and I won't sit here and lie to you. I give Mark Jackson more credit for that Warriors system than I do Kerr. However, Kerr's influence, if you would, I believe is more so like Phil Jackson's in that when Phil and Tex Winters were together.
Right.
Phil, and you can't underscore it now, by no means.
You really can't.
Phil was more so a coach of ego than he was X's and O's. And I see more of Kerr than I do that. Not saying Kerr's not an X's and O type guy,
right,
but I see him more in the way of how Phil was. Tex Winter designed that triangle offense.
He did.
A lot of people don't know that. You know what I mean? And he orchestrated it too. You know what I mean? But Phil kept Kobe and Shaq, you know, them personalities. Because you can have all the talent in the world and have the best game plan for whatever. But if the personalities are riffing, then it causes a rift in whatever it is you're trying to do execution-wise, and you don't win. So you need that just as well. You know what I mean? But don't get it twisted.
Right.
Golden State is one of them kind of teams. They don't. They just reload. They don't rebuild. They reload. They reload.
And they're going to be loaded
you can't
next
forever.
And they're going to be loaded next year. This is what people don't understand. They're going to be loaded next year. I put a rumor out there, but I put a rumor out there, and you know the pushback I get when I put rumors out there and they actually become fact. In 2016, after the Warriors lost to Cleveland, and I got a whole bunch of flack saying, the Warriors lost. They're not worth anything. Yeah, did you see the way that the Cleveland Cavaliers got one hell of a stimulus package? If Draymond Green plays Game 5, it's a 5-game conquest, and everybody knows that.
Yeah.
You weren't supposed to suspend Draymond Green in the finals. You're supposed to suspend him in the Western Conference Finals if you go by the letter of the law. But people don't want to. People don't want to see that. I think you were one of the first to comment and said it's all about the money, and it's damn true.
Yeah,
it is all. It is all about the money. People want to see a 7-game series. Who would want to see the 73-win Warriors? We're talking about 2016, folks. Walk over the Cleveland Cavaliers, which they did 3 out of the first 4 games. I mean, the first 4 games were decided, except for Game 7. I believe this to be correct. Except for Game 7, every one of those games was decided by double digits. And it should have been a 5-game conquest. It should have been a 5-game conquest. LeBron doesn't go crying to the NBA like he usually does. And yes, I said it, and I've said it multiple times. He goes crying to the NBA. Next thing you know, Draymond Green is facing a suspension he never should have faced. Period. Yeah. He never should have faced that suspension.
But you know what, man? In all honesty, when I saw that definitely was significant.
Mm-hmm.
But I peel the onion back a little bit deeper. Style of play is the basis for my main argument for what we're seeing now versus what I grew up watching. These guys, every day, all day, talking about working on their game.
Mm-hmm.
When you go to the gym to work on your game and all you're doing is working on your 3-point shot, that's not working on your game.
It really isn't.
I'll give you an example of what working on your game is, what Lonzo Ball did.
Right.
He went from shooting his shot underneath his chin to shooting over the top, and it's effective, highly effective. Add into the fact that he's a solid point guard anyway.
Yeah.
That Pelicans team might be here for a while. Just keep your eye on them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'll give you that. Yep.
Yeah, I'm just not, that series was more so the mindset of a hooper versus a guy who played backyard basketball when they having a barbecue is if I get a lead, you're not getting it back.
Right.
The Warriors had a 3-1 lead. And if you go back and really look at that finals and how they started to lose that lead, they started to do things that I won't even say were uncharacteristic. They just started to not respect the situation. And that's another thing about the era I grew up in. In the playoffs especially, every possession mattered.
Yep, every possession
mattered. You saw Steph doing stuff like Ginobili did in the finals.
Mm-hmm.
Who was Ginobili throwing the ball to, man?
Exactly.
Who was he throwing the ball to?
You know, another thing.
You know what, man? Arnold Rothstein.
Yeah.
Is what it looked like.
Mm-hmm. It does. It does look. It does look like that. And here's another thing that really gets on my nerves. There are no centers. There are no back to the basket centers.
Yeah. And the game that went global now.
Yep. There are no back to the
is the key to success, so to speak.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up, first center I watched was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Captain Skyhook. Robert Parrish. Okay? Moses Malone. If you want to call him an undersized center, so be it. But he was a center, doggone it. We're talking about folks like Dikembe Mutombo, Alonzo Mourning. Hell, let's go a little further. Patrick Ewing, who was my first ever favorite college basketball player, but then Michael Jordan showed up that same night in 1982, and that was that. I love both of those guys.
Yeah.
I love both of those guys.
Yeah.
Akeem Olajuwon.
Don't forget Rick Smith.
Rick Smith. Thank you. Rick Smith, the dunking Dutchman.
Yeah, don't forget Rick Smith.
I mean, Rick
and
Smith.
while you're playing, Arvydas Sabonis,
Arvydas Sabonis
And-
with the Portland
And the thing
Trailblazers.
about him, people don't realize he came into the league late.
Yes, he was 30.
He was maybe
he was
in late
30
20s, early 30s when he came into the league, man.
I want to say he was 31 when he made his debut
Maybe
with Portland.
so.
I think it was 30. I may be wrong, but he was 31 when he debuted. Okay, back to the basket centers. Why are you playing around David Robinson?
Yeah.
Why are you playing around Mark
I'm
Eaton?
not a fan of him. I can't stand David Robinson. And it's kind of somewhat personal because what Navy did to Cleveland State.
Okay, there you go.
I'm old enough to remember the 1986
Oh, I
NCAA
remember.
tournament.
I remember that.
Yeah, when Navy beat Cleveland State 71-70. 71-70. It was
Yep.
real controversial towards the end. Yeah, it was real controversial, man. And
I
you know what I
remember
mean?
that.
It was one of them, man, seriously, y'all they win on that right there. Okay, whatever. Because Cleveland State they had just knocked off Indiana.
Yep, they
a Bob
just
Knight
beat
Indiana team. You
And
know what
I
I'm saying?
wanna
They was coming.
And I want to
They
say
weren't
that
gonna let
was
that
in.
upstart.
I want to say that was in Syracuse at the Carrier Dome. I want to say that was at the Carrier Dome.
Yeah, I can't remember the venue. Yeah, I just remember the
I
moment.
I believe it was the Carrier Dome where that upset happened, where Cleveland State knocked off Indiana. But
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much fundamentally missing. There is so
no
much
question.
fundamentally missing with the NBA, and
No question.
I got a lot of pushback when I said, and I will continue to say, the All-Star game sucked. And
You think this year's All-Star game?
it's
You think?
for me, it's been that feeling since 2005 when the glitz and the light and the glamour started showing up.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you're talking about a game mindset, and I totally understand it. The game mindset was this for the All-Star game. Let's get introduced and let's go. You don't need the lights. You don't need the sizzle. You don't need the smoke. You don't need people introducing you. You just need the regular PA announcer who works at the arena to introduce you, introduce all the All-Stars, and let's go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, when I read and I talked about it on my show last week, or the last 2 weeks, the whole new format. Prior to actually seeing it play out,
Right.
My host and I, we were incredulous. Like why they just didn't just put one team in purple and one team in gold, 1-8 and 124.
1-8, yeah.
Go ahead and do it.
Yep.
You know what I mean? But in all honesty, as a purist, once I saw how it played out, I actually like the idea. It gives them incentive. And it's the first time in a long time, I will say, it seemed like the players towards the end were playing with more fervor.
Yeah.
With more energy or more intensity. So I appreciated that. But again, man, at the end of the day, basketball to me is just one of them sports where, unlike football and boxing and whatnot, you don't always have to. You can be effective without really being in contact with somebody. You get what I mean?
True.
So having a respect for craft, like I said, it's too many guys who handle the ball, who are getting adulation, who are terrible at the free throw line. You understand?
Would you
that
repeat
makes
that
absolutely
again?
no sense to me.
Would you repeat
and
that
then
again?
LeBron apologists.
Wait a minute. Would you repeat that again for the folks in the cheap seats at Market Square Arena? Would you repeat that for me, please?
Yeah. This whole idea, man. Dudes want to be, everybody wanted to be a 99 on 2K, but you can't hit free throws. I just don't get it, man. You know what I mean? You want everybody, he to go, but you can't. And that's another thing about the whole Jordan Bron argument. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
One thing you could say about Mike, you could count on him.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? But you tell me right now, ask anybody, and I still have yet to get a response from anybody. Be honest. For all LeBron apologists especially, you can't even count on your boy in the moments that matter most at the free throw line.
Nope.
But he'll go.
Nope.
Then they want to talk about how Jordan lost in the first round. And this is how vast awkward their argument and the philosophy and their logic is.
Mm-hmm. It's backwards.
Jordan lost in the first round.
Yeah.
But LeBron lost in the finals. The operative word in both cases is lost. So how can you point out one that lost and your boy done lost? You know what I'm saying?
I would rather. I've had so many guests on this show. One of my dear friends, Cole Johnson, who's on this show often.
Yeah, I like CJ, man.
Yeah,
he and I, we got to get together.
And I'm going to get both of you together on the show. We're really going to break this down. I like it. I liken it to this. I would rather take my losses in the first round than the World Championship Series. And I do not call it the final. I do not call it the finals anymore. After this past year, when Toronto beat Golden State, fair and square, by the way, for all you LeBron apologists, 4-2. It's a world champion. I've always called it the World Championship Series. More so after this past season, 2019. I would rather take my lumps and grow every year. And people, if you look at the scope of Jordan's career, basketball career, from 1985 to his first retirement in 1998. Yes, he lost in the first round, 3 consecutive years to the Boston Celtics. But starting in 88, he beat Cleveland in the first round, lost in the East semis to the Detroit Pistons. 1989, beat Cleveland 5 games, beat New York 6 games, lost in the East Finals to Detroit 6 games. 1990, beat Milwaukee in 4 in the first round. Won the second round against Philadelphia. That took 5 games. Lost in 7 to Detroit. 1991, swept the Knicks, beat the Sixers, swept Detroit, won the World Championship in 5 over the Lakers. This is what LeBron has been missing for his entire career. Progression. He hasn't had any.
Yeah. He's a terrible GM, too.
Oh, God.
And I saw people over there talking about he's going to be running for president. I'm like, yeah, okay. Let me get some popcorn first.
If he runs for president, I'll get the popcorn and the snacks. I'll sit back and watch this. I'll sit back and watch this election and laugh the whole darn time.
Yeah. The league is, it's such that, man, again, I got 2 boys, 18 and 16, and they grew up hooping for their school and stuff like that. And, we always sat down. They really didn't like me coming around to sit down and watch a game because Kobe Bryant called it, may he rest in peace, him and his daughter and everybody that was involved in that tragic accident.
Yes, indeed.
Kobe Bryant had a thing called detail.
Yep.
I wouldn't have named it that. But I have an appreciation for the details because if you want to have the most success at what you're doing, then you have to study it like nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
When you're watching a game, what do you see? You have to base what you're seeing. Film study, it should be, let me say it this way, it should be based on, in my opinion, the situation. What is this? And every situation is different. And when you run yourself through that situation in practice, when you get it to the point where it's purposeful, you won't panic.
Exactly.
There's an expression that says practice makes perfect.
Mm-hmm.
I disagree. Practice makes permanent.
Mm-hmm.
No man can be perfect at anything. That's why we make mistakes.
Yes. And
to try to say we can be both that's ludicrous. You got either one or the other. And you make mistakes, you can't be perfect is my thing.
Right.
So don't even shoot for perfection. Shoot for permanent. Mm-hmm. That means if I do it this way, regardless of the situation, 9.5 times out of 8, it should turn out that way.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Now, sometimes the ball go in and bounce out. Okay, well, the law averages. All right, bam, it happened.
Yes.
But like you said, you get back up and you do it again, man. These new players, they want more, but they want to do less.
Yes.
But they want the same credit for the guys who did the most.
Oh, God, yes.
It makes absolutely
none.
Blankety blink blank sense.
Blank sense, exactly.
None whatsoever, man. You know what's really sad? What's really, really sad? And I pointed this out to my sons as well. I said, let's go pick any day that, the NBA, maybe 4 or 5 games in the NBA are coming on, mostly like a Tuesday or a Thursday.
Yes.
And it's maybe 3 or 4 games. I said, let me just look at the slate of games and tell me which one are you rubbing your hands together because you can't wait to see.
Mm-hmm.
None of them. None of them.
None.
But guess what?
None.
Let the Philadelphia 76ers be playing the Boston Celtics in the middle of the season in 1988
Oh my
or 89.
God.
Man, we
You're-
made sure we did. Man, I used to make sure I did my chores and
Yep.
all my brothers and sisters' chores.
Man,
You understand what I'm saying? Because I was not trying to miss a moment. Man, these games now and then
the
league
old
pass,
Boston Garden.
of
The
course.
old either
And you
the
remember-
Boston Garden or the Spectrum in Philadelphia.
And it's,
Okay.
man, come on now.
TBS, before TNT took the NBA contract in, I want to say 1995, TBS had the NBA contract because TBS had the NBA for a long time. Turner Sports had the NBA for a long time. TBS was airing it first. When TBS
NBC had games too, didn't
Yep, NBC,
Yeah.
CBS had it for a while. I started watching it when it was on CBS. When TBS would air a rivalry game, i.e., I don't know, Pistons Bulls from Chicago Stadium, and the second game would be Celtics Lakers from the Forum, not the Great Western Forum, not the Staples Center, but the fabulous Forum. My chores were done. My homework was done. I'd go to my sister
right.
Nicole saying, "Hey, you need any help with anything?" "No, I'm all right." Because when that clock moved to 7 o'clock or 8 in the Eastern time zone, game time.
Game time. And
Game
you know
time.
what? Since its inception, when did League Pass start offering to sell or just for folks to buy just the fourth quarters of games? When League Pass first came out, League Pass was $25 million for the
Yep.
season. You know what I'm saying?
Yep, it sure
Now-
was.
You can $2.99. You can buy the fourth quarter. And why is that? Ain't nobody watching them first through third. How many times have you watched the NBA game with guys that everybody on one hand want to argue who in the top 10, and then on the flip side, the teams that both of them guys play on in a game, 3 or 4 or 5 minutes go past, and ain't nobody hit a shot. Nah.
How many
Come on,
times?
man.
How many times have we seen that though? How many
Come on,
times
man.
have we
The
seen that in
possessions are
today's
terrible,
NBA?
man.
How many times have we seen in today's NBA, like you said, a scoreless streak that lasts in upwards of 5 minutes? We can go through
Yeah,
two
man.
media, and I've been at NBA games. We can go through 2 scheduled media timeouts in a full quarter, and no one has scored. I've seen it happen.
Yeah, it's terrible, man.
It is.
Don't make no sense, man. But everybody want to sit and rant and rave. I mean, I get it. I still watch it. 'Cause
Right.
I love the sport.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I grew up playing the sport, man. I grew up playing the sport at a time when, how good you were was a lifesaver.
Yes.
You could move through certain neighborhoods that you otherwise might not have been able to survive in had you got caught in it at night. You know what I mean? Or at the wrong time of day. It'd be like, hey, man, no, didn't you play at such and such park? Yeah, man. Oh, he good, man. He good. Dude, that nice J work or something. And I'm not patting myself on the back, and I'm just saying, it was just a respect for craft, man. Growing up, that these dudes nowadays, I ain't never seen nothing like that, man. I never seen nothing like it. These dudes working on that game, and everybody going to work on. It's amazing how everybody stays out on the perimeter on offense.
Yep.
It's just amazing to me, man. The overabundance of threes taken. Going
first-
back to that Cavs Warriors finals.
Yeah.
That I think the Cavs and Warriors combined in game 3 or 4 shot like 81 3-pointers or something like that. It was something
3-point
crazy.
goals. Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
just, that's
81
insane.
3-point field goal attempts. Man.
That's insane, man.
Man. Oh, man. I'm glad I finally
You're playing
got.
the popularity and
Yep.
not to the game.
They're not playing the game. They're playing the popular. They're playing to the popular mode, and
Yeah.
that's just not that just doesn't work. For me, it just doesn't work. I mean, and we'll close with this point because I got to have you back on again. When you had 3-point specialists, it was different. Craig Hodges, Reggie Miller, Steve Kerr, Trent Tucker for the Knicks, Jeff Hornacek when he was with the Phoenix Suns for a while, Hersey Hawkins with
He
Philadelphia,
was with Utah too. Yeah,
Andrew-
Hersey Hawkins in
Yep.
Seattle too.
Seattle, yep, Andrew Toney with Philadelphia.
The Boston Strangler.
Yeah. Anybody that remembers that nickname given to Andrew Toney remembers the year. And I'll throw that trivia question out a little bit later on in the program. He's the man in charge of the Shop Report. James Smith joining me, Barbershop Jay. We're going to use that mock on this show and give him the love he deserves.
Yes,
man, it is a thrill and an honor to have you on, my friend, and I got to have you on again.
Yes, I appreciate it. Can I say one last thing, though?
Go for it.
Those players back then, you say three-point specialists, I think they just were good shooters.
Yes.
Reggie Miller had a drill in particular. He called it the in and out drill, where he would go from 2 feet to 5 feet to 7 feet to 10 feet to 9 feet. He just was a good shooter. He said that way when I went out to the 3-point range, the shot was basically automatic.
Yeah, it was easy. It was easy.
Appreciate you for having me on, man.
Hey, thank you, brother. Appreciate the time.
All right. All right, have a good one.
Man, it just seems that the game has changed so much and not for the better. And that, to this old schooler as well as a few others, is a big, big problem. The NBA's got a big problem on their hands, and they have to find a way to solve it. And it's going to fall on the players, yes, but it's going to fall on some of the coaches, too. Got to take a time out. Got more for you after this. Welcome back, folks. Let's talk some baseball, shall we? Now, I told people last year that the White Sox were going to be a problem. And, of course, I got laughed at being a Southsider and being a White Sox fan. But I stayed true to those words, and people started to see it before the injuries happened. This year, there's going to be a lot more of that, as long as they stay healthy. To help me break this down is the voice of the Winston-Salem Dash, a member of the White Sox farm system. This is Mr. Connor Klingen, and he joins me right now. How are you, my friend?
Doing pretty well, Brian. Thanks for having me on.
There is a buzz on the South Side for the first time in a while.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I was lucky enough last season to see some of these guys come through Winston-Salem. Last year, we started the year with Luis Robert and Nick Madrigal. And you saw it this offseason. The White Sox giving Luis Robert an $88 million contract if all of the options are picked up before he even plays a major league game. So that tells you about the kind of talent he has, and I fully expect him to be the starting center fielder on opening day. And along with that, you have the continued development of guys like Tim Anderson, Yohan Moncada, Lucas Giolito, and Eloy Jimenez, among others. So it's extremely exciting for the White Sox. And I think that they do have a legitimate chance to compete in the AL Central this year. They're going to need things to break their way. They're going to need the Minnesota Twins not to be a record-setting type team again this season, but I do think they have a legitimate chance, and I think White Sox fans expect at the very least for this team to be around 500, if not competing for a playoff spot.
I wouldn't be surprised if these are some wild card contenders this year, just on the talent alone. But there is a wild card within the wild card competition, and that's the pitching staff. This is a staff that has grown. Now you add Dallas Keuchel, a former Cy Young winner, to the equation. You have Lucas Giolito, who was an all-star, and then you have Michael Kopech looming on the horizon. So this pitching staff is only going to get stronger. It's like you said, my friend. The Minnesota Twins can't be a record-setting home run hitting ball club, and things that have to break the White Sox way. But considering who they have right now and who they picked up in the offseason in terms of Yasmani Grandal and re-signing Jose Abreu, this White Sox team is creating more than a buzz. There is some excitement on the South Side.
Oh, definitely. And I think, like you said, with the pitching staff, Michael Kopech is someone I really see as a key to the season. Now, there's a good chance that he'll start in AAA coming off of that Tommy John surgery, and he could be dealing with an innings limit this season. But if he is who the White Sox believe he is and who everyone saw that he was in those first few starts that he was able to make in 2018, that could really be a game changer for this team. And I really like the addition of Dallas Keuchel as well, getting a veteran presence in that rotation, because as good as Giolito was last year, we all saw him in 2018 and 2017. He's had his struggles. He's still growing as a major league pitcher. You also have Dylan Cease. These guys all need to learn. They all need to grow, and getting someone like Keuchel is huge for that, as well as Gio Gonzalez, who finally will pitch in a White Sox uniform after they twice traded him away from their minor league system.
Who do you suspect will be the closer for this team? Because since 2008, and more importantly, since 2012, when the White Sox were in front in the Central Division for much of the season, and then they completely fell off because their bullpen was absolutely spent. Who is the closer for this White Sox club to really solidify that bullpen?
Well, I think it'll still be Alex Colomé. He had a pretty strong season last year. You know, the ERA under 3, had over 30 saves in 2019. So he had a strong season last year, and there was a lot of buzz that the White Sox were going to get rid of him at the deadline, try to get some more prospects back. And I think the fact that they held on to Colomé last season, it kind of shows that Rick Hahn and company knew that 2020 was the year they could contend, and they wanted to hold on to an above-average closer in Major League Baseball, and maybe someone who can even take another step to being one of the elite closers. You can see that sometimes with bullpen guys. You know, he's now entering his age 31 season, but he really could only be getting better at this point. But you go back to 2016, was really a dominant force for the Tampa Bay Rays and their bullpen. But I really liked as well on the bullpen side the move that they made yesterday, giving an extension to Aaron Bummer. He's a great piece as a setup man in their bullpen. One guy who, you know, he's not on that many radars right now, but last season saw him in Winston-Salem, and I expect him to perhaps this season, if not in 2021, become a part of the White Sox bullpen. A right-hander by the name of Cody Hoyer. He is an electric right-handed arm out of the bullpen, and I'd expect him to start the year in at least Birmingham, perhaps Charlotte, and I think he has the potential to maybe become a contributor for this bullpen late in the season.
Talking with Winston-Salem Dash voice Connor Clingan as we break down the White Sox entering the 2020 season and the excitement therein. Who gets the ball on opening day? I would suspect it would be Dallas Keuchel.
You know, there's been rumors about it going either way. It could be Lucas Giolito or Dallas Keuchel. Those are the two prime candidates. That'll be a decision that Rick Renteria and Don Cooper will have to make. Dallas Keuchel does have that experience of being a Cy Young winner, of winning a World Series, so he's been on big stages before. So that's going to be a playoff-like atmosphere at Guaranteed Rate Field, March 26th, when the White Sox open up against the Royals. So perhaps because of that, you may feel more comfortable giving the ball to someone like Keuchel. But Giolito, I think he showed last year that he has the potential to be an ace for a rotation, and I think he'd be ready to step up to the challenge to be the opening day starter.
Again, talking with Connor Clingan of the Winston-Salem Dash, the voice of the Winston-Salem Dash. We talked about this front end. Let's look at the front end of the White Sox rotation. You got Keuchel, you got Giolito. Kopech may be coming back. Who fills out this rotation for the White Sox?
Well, you've also got Dylan Cease, and we saw he had his ups and downs last season as a rookie. But he has shown so much potential all the way back from when he was a part of the Cubs system, obviously a part of the Jose Quintana trade. I think he's someone who's going to show a lot of growth this season. He's got that great fastball, got a really good breaking ball as well. A key for him in his development at the minor league level was using that changeup a little bit more, and I think that's something we'll continue to see from him. Reynaldo Lopez as well, kind of a rough season for him last year after he had a pretty strong 2018. And there are people that have suggested on the outside that he's someone who could be moved to the bullpen instead of being part of the rotation. And I think he's still shown flashes of brilliance at times. Last year, at that start where he had 14 strikeouts. So at least to start the season, he's going to be a part of the rotation, and it'll be interesting to see how he works under the pressure, knowing that Michael Kopech is sitting there in the minor leagues and that he's trying to hold on to a spot in that rotation. And Gio Gonzalez as well. I think right now he's probably your fifth starter, sort of on the back end of his career, but he's someone who's going to be consistent. He may not put up outstanding numbers, but he's someone that's going to give you an ERA somewhere around the 4-ish range, 4 to 4.5 range. And if that's your number 5 starter for a major league team, especially with the way teams are playing offensively lately in Major League Baseball, that's great. And Gonzalez is a really experienced guy. So the rotation, I would say, is not as much of a sure thing as the lineup is. We saw what the lineup was able to do last year, and that was without guys like Luis Robert, Yasmani Grandal, Edwin Encarnacion, and Nick Madrigal. But the rotation is not as much of a sure thing for this season. So it'll be interesting to see how guys like Lopez and Cease try to take those steps forward.
Speaking of the offense, let's take a look at this offense and the way it has come together. The young guys, you know what they're going to do for you. How big is the signing, and how will the signing of one Edwin Encarnacion benefit the White Sox?
Well, I would say it's almost automatic that that's going to add 35-plus home runs to the White Sox offense this year. I mean, he just has done it time and time again. He's 37 years old now, but he's most likely going to be the regular designated hitter in the lineup. A little bit of a liability in the field at this point in his career, but he's going to be a really consistent presence in this lineup. And I think what's also exciting about that is when you have someone like Abreu, it remains to be seen where Rick Renteria will place all of these guys in the order, and there'll be changes throughout the season. But just imagine a pitcher facing Jose Abreu, and perhaps coming up next, you have Eloy Jimenez. You want to pitch around him? Well, actually, up next, you've got Edwin Encarnacion. So it's the most dangerous White Sox lineup that I can remember in some time. So that's a really exciting thing, and I'm sure Abreu, Jimenez, Moncada, they're all excited to have that additional protection in the lineup.
It's a big, big piece for the White Sox signing veteran slugger Edwin Encarnacion. Let's look at Mount Eloy, as he's often called. Eloy Jimenez, a tremendous season last year. How much better can this kid get?
Well, I think where he needs to take the step forward is in the field. I think he's working really hard this offseason on playing a more serviceable left field. That's probably his main focus. But as you said, with the bat last season, he had his ups and downs early, but late in the year, he came out extremely strong and finishing his rookie season with 31 home runs. I really wouldn't be surprised if he pushes the 40 number this season on home runs. He's that kind of talent. But I think for him, the main focus is getting better defensively, and that's a big key for the White Sox. They struggled defensively last year, and at the end of the day, the teams that make the playoffs, the teams that win the World Series, a lot of that is done with pitching and defense. So I think that's what his main focus is, and I think the Dolphins are going to continue to get better as well.
Man, but looking at that offense, Jimenez and Abreu and Encarnacion have a chance to all have 40 home run seasons. And the last time the White Sox had two players in the lineup that had 40-plus home runs, 2006, Jermaine Dye and Jim Thome. But as my partner just said, it's the defense where the White Sox really need to improve. We'll keep you updated on all of our previews and take you throughout the course of the season. My White Sox correspondent, Connor Clingan, the voice of the Winston-Salem Dash, joining me to talk some White Sox baseball. Thank you very much for the time, my friend. I look forward to conversing with you throughout the course of the season.
Thanks, Brian. Appreciate you having me on.
Man, look, we got some more stuff for you. More baseball as Errol Marks will join me after the break. To the program, everybody. I want to thank you for tuning us in. Don't forget, you can follow everything. Just follow snwdigitalmedia.com on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, and Pinterest. Now, listen, I know I've spent a lot of time on the NBA this past week, and I have my reasons. One of them's on the line. I haven't had this man on in a little while, and we're going to rectify that. Chris Pirtle joins me right now. How are you, my friend?
Doing great, Snowman. Good to be with you today.
Good to be with you as well. Did you ever think you'd become a Dallas Mavericks fan because of Luka?
No, I had no idea this was going to happen to me, Brian. You know, and it's not like he's a rookie, so all of last year I had no idea that in the year 2020 I would become a Dallas Mavericks fan. But here I am, and it's just days after getting to meet the young man as well as Porzingis this past Friday evening in Orlando. But again, to answer your question, I had no idea I was on the verge of becoming a Mavericks fan.
Luka is fun to watch. The Mavericks have been fun to watch, and they're right in the thick of the playoff picture, and that's where we're going with this conversation. Chris Pirtle joins me. I've got to hammer home a point in which you agree with me. I don't think the Lakers are going that far. They got too many doggone holes.
Yeah, I would agree. And just to circle back to the Mavericks real quick, and then I'll jump right into the Lakers. The Mavericks, to me, Brian, have become must-see TV.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, they're playing the Spurs tonight in San Antonio, and I'll be right in front of my television set to watch those guys. An exciting team. And, you know, it's not just Luka and Porzingis. They're getting great contributions from guys like Maxi Kleber, who would have thought that he would be getting substantial minutes and averaging the points that he is right now. Tim Hardaway, Seth Curry, they've got some players on that team. The more I watch the team in Dallas, the more I like them. But as far as the Lakers are concerned, Brian, there are concerns, and I think they were magnified this past Sunday when the Boston Celtics brought a team in minus Kemba Walker, and the Lakers, quite frankly, wanted to win that game. It was a revenge game going back to MLK Day when Boston hammered the Lakers by 34 points at the TD Garden. So you better believe the Lakers really wanted that game. And I'll tell you what, if they wouldn't have got help from the refs down the stretch, they would not have won that game.
Because Jason Tatum did not clear out. He was called for an offensive foul on the final possession that should not have been called. In fact, if I looked at this correctly, and I need you to help me on this one, if I looked at it, Jason Tatum got fouled first. He did not touch his defender. The defender got him.
Yeah, you're right. The call should have gone against the player from the Lakers, if anything. And then there was a questionable technical foul called on Brad Stevens, a coach who rarely gets technical fouls. From what I was told, he uttered the words, golly geez, and that got him teed up.
And that got him teed up.
The refs were definitely looking to help the Lakers that night for whatever reason.
And Boston winds up losing that game 114-112. And I said this earlier in the week. In fact, I said it last week as well here on the program. LeBron's not carrying that team. Anthony Davis is. But they're in the process of signing Markieff Morris. That's good. But they still have not solved the one big problem they have had for 2 years. They are minus a point guard.
Well, they're minus a point guard, and they're minus a lot of good shooters. I mean, last time I checked, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is not exactly a sharp-shooting three-point shooter that you can depend on, especially once you get to the playoffs. Now, they got a huge contribution last night from Danny Green when they played the Pels.
Right.
Had that not happened, they may not have won that game last night.
True.
So there are a lot of holes. And one thing I don't like about that team, Brian, is they're extra dirty when things aren't going their way. And we saw that really early in the season when they had to get Luka bloodied a few times just to beat the Mavericks in Dallas.
We saw that on Sunday against Boston because Jason Tatum was frying them to a crisp. He was frying the Lakers to a crisp, and the Lakers had to get dirty to try to contain him, but they couldn't contain him. There's your problem.
Yeah, most definitely. And they've got the players on the interior. Well, the strength of that Laker team is the tall bodies they have. Dwight Howard, JaVale McGee, Anthony Davis, all good shot blockers. But you can believe those guys are going to throw some elbows and get dirty if they feel like that's what they need to do to win. And if that's the case, that's a sign of a team that is not really that great of a team if they have to be dirty.
Chris Pirtle joining me here on the program, talking all things NBA as we take a peek toward the playoffs. I don't trust the Lakers. I sure as hell don't trust the Houston Rockets.
No, right now the Rockets are riding a high, but it seems like they go through this just about every season. They go up, they go down. They host Memphis tonight, Brian. They're a 12-point favorite against the Memphis Grizzlies. Keep an eye on that game tonight. I would not be surprised at all to see the Grizz give them a good game. Now, the Grizz have some injuries, no Jaren Jackson again, but they're coming off of a darn near 35-point beatdown 2 nights ago to the Clippers.
Yeah.
I expect to see an inspired effort tonight from the Grizzlies, and let's see if they can steal that game in Houston. Houston's running a big high ever since they traded Clint Capella. I think they're due for a reality check.
They're going to get a reality check come playoff time because they do not have any kind of rim protection. None. They trade the only rim protector they have, and if you expect Eric Gordon to be a rim protector, A, he needs to stay on the floor, and B, he needs to grow about 5 inches.
Yeah. So it's not going to happen from Eric Gordon. Like you said, he has to stay on the floor. Word out of Houston is he has been ruled out for tonight's contest against the Grizzlies. So if he can't get on the floor, he's obviously not going to protect any rims.
Right.
The Rockets are going to want to outscore their opponents, and to try to do that every single night, especially when you get to a 7-game playoff series, that's going to be extremely difficult.
And the other problem with the Rockets is in between their ears. Here's what I mean. 4 shots at the team that perfected small ball in the past 10 years. That will be Golden State. And 4 times they lost to them trying to beat them at their own game. Okay, reality check, Houston. If you don't have the weapons to get by Golden State, and by the way, Golden State had rim protectors the past 5 seasons, then how the blank are you going to get to what many people say would be the Western Conference Finals if you don't have a rim protector now?
Well, again, they're going to need Westbrook and Harden to score 40 points a game, and that's asking a lot. So I don't, it's a Mike D'Antoni coach team. We saw what the Phoenix Suns used to do 15 years ago with Steve Nash. But they, again, had some interior presence when they had Amari Stoudemire and then when they acquired Shaq in 2007.
Exactly.
So I don't know how the Rockets are going to do this, but I wouldn't be surprised to see them make some noise in the first round, but there's no guarantee they're going to get out of the first round. Brian, let's keep this in mind. This is a team that just 2 seasons ago, just 24 months ago, went on to win 65 games in the regular season, went to Game 7 of the conference finals. Last year, they took a step backwards and only made it to round 2. If they take another step backwards and don't get out of the first round, it's not going to be a pretty sight in Houston, and they're stuck with 2 big contracts, so they're going to have to try to find a way to make it work. Yep. But luckily for them, they have a good coach in place in Mike D'Antoni. I have a lot more confidence, I think, than a lot of people do in D'Antoni. I think he gets a bad rap. I think he's gotten a lot out of a little, and a lot in some of the places he's been, especially in Phoenix. Not saying that he had just a little to work with, because he had some good players, but he also has good players in Houston. So let's see what happens. I'm willing to give him a shot, but I'm skeptical like you are.
You know what? I've given D'Antoni a shot. I did that when he was in Phoenix, and considering the problems that they have had since 2015, or since he took over. Let's just be real. Since he took over in the early part of the 2015-2016 season, he's had nothing but problems in getting out of the Western Conference. I didn't trust him then. I really don't trust him now. The biggest mistake I say the Rockets made was getting rid of Kevin McHale. Why? Because Kevin McHale preached something D'Antoni doesn't. It's called defense.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But, it was unfortunately, I think it was time for McHale to move on. They started the 2015 season really bad. I want to say it was 1-7 in their first several games, made J.B. Bickerstaff the interim head coach. And gosh, looks like J.B. Bickerstaff is now an interim head coach again. He's got to be one of the all-time leaders in being an interim head coach, because he's at it once again in Cleveland this time.
I'm going to debut my segment Rumor Mill on Friday, and I have a landing spot for J.B. Bickerstaff. So y'all pay attention to Friday's show, and I'll tell you where I think he's going to land next season as not an interim head coach, but a head coach. Let's go to the East really quick. Milwaukee has 50 wins. They're chasing 70. But right now, as much as Milwaukee has impressed me, don't get me wrong, Milwaukee has impressed me, Toronto is lying in wait for them again.
Well, we saw it last night in Toronto. Milwaukee goes in there and gets the victory. Now, you better believe Toronto wanted that. They played Milwaukee earlier in the season in Milwaukee and got blown out of the building. So I was impressed with the way the Bucks went in there on back-to-back road games. They had played the previous night in Washington in a game that went to overtime.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to give the Bucks credit, Brian. They go, like I said, back-to-back road games on a back-to-back, and they take out the Raptors fairly easily last night at Scotiabank Arena in Toronto. So I'm a believer in the Bucks. I'm not a believer that they're going to win the Eastern Conference. I simply think Boston is a better team with better players.
Yep.
But gosh, this Milwaukee team is impressive, and I may have to start becoming a believer.
Boston is the more complete team. Boston this season is what Toronto was last year, and Boston is continuing to fly under the radar, especially with Kemba Walker. And you and I have spoken about this on my show as well as yours, the Sports Junkies. A fabulous show, folks. Y'all need to check it out. There's a shameless plug. But we've spoken about Kemba on both of our programs. And I'll tell you what, man, Kemba has been the stabilizing force that Boston has missed for 2 years.
Yeah, and they've got, and it was just 2 years ago when they went to Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Final. They did that with Terry Rozier at point guard.
Yep.
Think about what they're going to be able to do now with Kemba Walker in that position. Now, this is going to be uncharted territory to Kemba Walker. He's never played in the second round. I think that Charlotte team that he was on only made the playoffs once or twice his entire career.
Mm-hmm.
So it will be something new for Kemba, but you got to believe, Brian, the guy is a winner dating back to his college days at UConn.
At Connecticut,
and I think he'll handle the pressure just fine, yeah.
I believe he will handle the pressure just fine. A team that won't handle the pressure just fine has got to be Philadelphia. They get bitten by the injury bug to one of their key players in Ben Simmons. And I didn't trust Ben Simmons in the first place. We've talked about it before. Ben Simmons' lack of a jump shot is going to kill them. The inconsistency of Joel Embiid now having to be the man to carry the offense is going to end them.
Yeah, it's a tough situation in Philadelphia. It kind of reminds me of Houston. The past two seasons, the Sixers have made it to the second round of the playoffs, and that was with having a 7-year drought or a 6-year drought where they didn't make the playoffs from 2013 through all the way up until 2018 when they made the second round 2 years ago and beat Miami in the first round, and then was basically handled by the Boston Celtics in round 2 and exited 4-1. Last season had similar result, except they were able to go 7 games in the second round. If they take a step backwards and not make it out of the first round, could be big time changes in Philly this offseason.
Yeah, I really see some changes coming. The only way Philadelphia keeps their entire squad together is if they come out of the East. And with the way Boston is playing and with the way Toronto and Milwaukee are playing, I just don't see that happening. He's Chris Pirtle, the man in charge of the Sports Junkies, joining me here. He has an additional thought. Go ahead.
Yeah, Philly could get lucky and get a 4-5 matchup with Indiana. That could turn out to be a favorable matchup, but there's no guarantee that they'll win that matchup. So like I said, if they don't get out of the first round, expect wholesale changes this offseason in Philly, including relieving Brett Brown of his duties. I think the man's a good coach, but he may just be in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah, that's how I'm seeing it. He's Chris Pirtle, the man in charge of the Sports Junkies. You can listen to him every Friday from 11 a.m. Eastern to high noon. I'll make a couple of appearances one time or another on the program to talk some hoops, and I may have to do that this Friday. Pleasure having you on, my friend. Appreciate the time.
Always a pleasure, Brian. Have a great one.
Got more for you, folks, after this.
We are on the brink of the stretch run and stretch drive for the NBA season. Now, this time last year, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was this date last year, the Lakers played the Rockets at home and they beat the Rockets, and LeBron said that he was activating playoff mode. Well, 28 days later, they deactivated Mr. James when the Lakers failed to qualify for the playoffs. This year's a different story because his team, Los Angeles Lakers, they are the number one seed and they look pretty good. They look poised to be the number one seed in the West. And things are looking up, as it was evidenced this week. But of course, we know that we have to always talk about this guy because when there's another day, there's another LeBron James conversation being brought up. So right now, let's get to it. Bronsexuals, this is your time to shine. Leg out.
In a world where partial greatness is celebrated and total greatness is shunned, there stands to be a figure on the lips of those who love him and those who hate him. The inane comparisons to Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant continue and has existed since 2003. There is no end in sight, for the battle between those who unconditionally love and unconditionally hate him wages on. These are their stories. Welcome to the Bronsexual Confessions.
So Sunday, just so you know, Bronsexuals, I give you the positive too. So they played a game against the Celtics. And of course, this is the rivalry of all of the NBA. Even though it's okay, it's not really all that stellar now. Not like it was in the 80s or even the turn of last decade, but I digress. So LeBron, dribbled to the right. He was guarded 1-on-1. He made a fadeaway move, hit the shot with about 30 seconds left to play. And that decided things as the Lakers split the season series with the Celtics with the win Sunday, 114-112. Now, LeBron had 29 points in that game, 9 assists and 8 rebounds. But with the good comes the, why do we have to talk about this? So Monday, as you all know, there was a ceremony. A not necessarily funeral, but really a public memorial service held for Gianna and Kobe Bryant at Staples Center. Conspicuous in possibly his absence was LeBron James, and people were asking the question, did LeBron James attend the Kobe Bryant public service? Who cares? And it just upset me to hear that, because it was like, okay, someone's trying to squeeze the turnip hard to come up with some news. Why? It was not news at all. And when I think of it, it's infuriating. However, that is not what I want to really talk about in this Bronxexual Confessions time period. So I had a conversation with a Bronxexual, and this Bronxexual was loud and proud. I mean, just very proud. But unlike most Bronxexuals, this guy was more respectful. And so he asked this question. He said, quote, "For those who are not convinced that LeBron is the GOAT, GOAT meaning greatest of all time, is there anything he can do to change your mind? Like win 1 more championship, win 4 more championships, break Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's record." Close quote. Now, I figured that's a simple question. That's a simple ask. I have to admit that. But with that simple question, I had a simpler answer, which is, quote, "There isn't anything LeBron can do to change my mind as to him being the GOAT. The ship forever sailed on June 11th, 2011. Close quote. Now, I got pushback on that. Someone said to me, so you mean the time when LeBron, for the first time in his career, played with a real star and they had chemistry issues? And I laugh at that. Because if you're a team that's supposed to win, as he said in June of 2010 when he signed on the dotted line and he showed up in Miami with Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade in their Heat uniforms, and he has a mic in his hand and he says, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6, not 7 championships. He came to win chips. He didn't come to just simply go through the motions and say, well, I think we don't have the chemistry down. Maybe we can make this year a mulligan. No. His thought process when he signed to be on the Heat, June 2010, well, by this time next year, we're going to be hoisting up the Larry O'Brien trophy. So when I heard the chemistry talk, I said, okay, chemistry issues, that's in November and December, not June. Because June, that would have been an issue already handled. No. And meanwhile, the reason why I said June 11th, 2011 and not June 13th, 2007 was because in June 13, 2007, that was the date of Game 4 of the 2007 NBA Finals between the Spurs and the Cavaliers. And the Spurs swept the Cavaliers. No, LeBron was punching up. He was punching me on his weight class, as they say. Because remember, that was the same year where in the Eastern Conference Finals, it basically was him and a whole bunch of other people. And remember, he had Antoine Jameson and Daniel Gibson, or Booby, along with Erison Varejao as teammates. And that was the series where he scored 25 straight points and 20, some to the effect of 28 out of the last, 29 out of the last 30. In a win against probably one of the most stout defensive teams that we have seen in quite some time in the Detroit Pistons. So to get past them in 6, and that was all they had. They shot as much as they could. They shot their best shot because when they got to the Spurs in 2007's NBA Finals, they met up with a team that just was too strong, too big, too fast, too skilled, and too loaded up with championship pedigree. That was just the case. So I give the 2007 season a pass. I don't really consider that anything that would hurt his GOAT status. Never did. 2011 happened. So we get to the time where he's a Heat and he ran into some adversity, not much, but some adversity in the Eastern Conference Finals against the Bulls, where the Heat got whooped in game 1 and then they stormed in games 2, 3, 4, and 5 and just gentlemen swept them completely out the playoffs. So it made you think, okay, well, I guess here it is. The coronation is about to happen. And then the first 2 games, they split it between themselves and the Mavs. And then we get to game 3. And we start to see something that was troubling. And then we saw it again in game 4. And then we saw it again in game 5. And then we saw it again in game 6. And what was the something troubling that I'm talking about? The fourth quarter in games 3, 4, 5, and 6. The money quarter. The quarter where you earn your stripes. The quarter that separates the men from the boys. The quarter that separates the elite from the, okay, you all right, superstar. And that has been said by many analysts, journalists, players, and executives. And LeBron at this time, 26 years of age, this was his 8th year in the league, so this was no excuse at all to come up and play smaller than mini-me. Yet he did. Because in each of those fourth quarters, that man scored a total of 8 points. I'll say it again. Game 3's fourth quarter, 2 points. Game 4's fourth quarter, 2 points. Game 5's fourth quarter, 2 points. Game 6's fourth quarter, 2 points. Now, you can say in game 5, I think he had a triple-double. That doesn't matter. Because when he was supposed to come up big, he came up small. So the Heat lost that series 4-2 to the Mavs. And look, in that series, Dirk Nowitzki outclassed everybody in it. So I'm not even comparing LeBron to Dirk in that series, because Dirk played out of his mind in that playoff stretch. No, LeBron played so bad. He averaged 17.8 points in that series. LeBron in that series played so bad that the 6th man for the Mavericks, Jason Terry, outplayed him. He averaged 18 points. Shot better from the field, had a better shooting percentage, played less minutes, and he outplayed LeBron. So if you ask me why I don't ever consider, why I will never consider, and why I will not change considering LeBron James to be the greatest of all time, look at games 3, 4, 5, and 6 of the 2011 NBA Finals. And there is where LeBron James's candidacy to be the greatest player of all time in the NBA died. And it is forever buried. You can whimper, you can cry, you can say foul, you can say I'm being harsh, you can say I'm being unfair, you can even call me an F. Bron Bronner. I don't care what you say. Those stats in those 4 games, especially those key 48 minutes that I just laid out for you, is the reason why I will never consider LeBron James to be the greatest basketball player who's ever played in the National Basketball Association. Because there was one moment, or I should say 4 in this case, where he came up so small. The greatest player in the world was outplayed by a 6th man. That should never happen. So, I'll say a phrase that Killmonger said in Black Panther. And this is directly aimed right at you, Bronsexual. Is this your king? Is this your king?
In a world where contradiction and hypocrisy exist, lies the truth to set us all free. Here is where we all get enlightened. This has been yet another installment of The Bronsexual Confessions.
Wonderful, wonderful job, my friend. Wonderful job. And I'm going to add a little something to that that's going to really get on some people's nerves, and frankly, I don't care. And I got a LeBron take of my own that will follow this one. You heard Cole Johnson say that LeBron got outperformed by a 6th man, which permanently, in my eyes, also eliminates LeBron from being the greatest of all time. Well, that's not the first time that's happened. It also happened a second time. Now, granted, the second time that it happened, said 6th man started the last 3 games of the World Championship Series. But said 6th man also wound up being most valuable player. You know who that 6th man was? That 6th man was Andre Iguodala, who was named Finals MVP in the 2015 World Championship Series. You're supposed to be the best of the best of the best, LeBron James. And you got outperformed by Jason Terry, who was the 6th man in 2011. And 4 years later, you got outperformed and shut down to an extent by Andre Iguodala in 2015. And oh, by the way, both of those series were for the World Championship. And I'll add this, and I got another take coming. I'm going to expand on this. By the way, Bronsexuals, haven't you forgotten that LeBron has jumped ship 3 separate times to win championships? While a certain Bronsexual who says LeBron is greater than Kobe is greater than MJ, and that is a false statement. If you know your math, you know that to be a false statement. Kobe earned all 5 of his titles with the Lakers. Michael Jordan earned all 6 of his titles with the Bulls. And to Mr. Ryan Hollins, who brought up the impact that LeBron had with different teammates. Yeah, Kobe has had different teammates, and so has Michael. Here's the difference. Kobe and Michael didn't have to chase the teammates. They came to them. The teammates that were impacted by Kobe and MJ didn't have to chase they didn't have to chase the teammates. The teammates came to them, and quite willingly, which is why I feel the Lakers will not get out of the second round of the playoffs this year, and Anthony Davis is going to go home. A little hint for the rumor mill. Till next time, have a great day. God bless. Remember to make your next move your best move. And always remember, if your dreams don't scare you, then they are not big enough. Dream big, do bigger. I am, and I hope you all are too. I'm out of here. See you tomorrow.